When a person's body is lowered into the ground, we think that's it. The end. The final farewell, mourning, flowers, silence. But that's only what the living see. In reality, at that very moment, everything is only beginning. For many years I spent time in trance, observing what happens to the soul after death, sometimes immediately, sometimes days later. I saw people leave. I saw them get stuck. I saw them return. And the greatest mysteries were revealed to me when I began asking one simple question: what happens to the soul if its body is buried in the ground? The answer didn't come right away. It arrived in fragments, through dreams, through voices, through a strange, ringing sense of truth, too close to be random. And here is what was shown to me. In the first hours after death, the soul still feels the body. Not the way it did before, but it feels. There is a thread, thinner than a hair, that still holds. It trembles. It doesn't know whether to let go or to stay, especially if the death was sudden, especially if the person wasn't ready. And then, when the coffin is lowered into the ground, something changes. In trance, I saw how the soul seems to hear the dull thud of soil hitting the lid, the first, the second, the third, and with each one, it steps back. It doesn't leave. It retreats, as if confused, as if saying to itself, "So that's it? Is it really all over?" Some souls don't understand they're dead. They don't believe it. They remain nearby, by the gravestone, on the bench, in the house where they lived. And the more they were attached to the material, the longer they stay. One man, I saw him, sat at his grave for a week, stroking the ground with his hand, as if trying to trample it down. He said, "I just fell asleep. This is all a mistake. They'll open the lid any moment and say, 'Sorry, we got it wrong.'" But no one opened it. Sometimes the soul doesn't leave because it's waiting for loved ones, for forgiveness. Sometimes because it's afraid that over there is worse. And then the most frightening thing occurs: becoming stuck, neither here nor there, not alive, not gone. I saw how a soul stood over the coffin and said, "But I didn't get to," and the earth was already poured, and the choir was already gone, and only the wind rustled the wreaths. If you like, this is the moment of truth, when a person first realizes that their life was not eternal, and that now it's only them and what's inside. No masks, no roles, just you and your true self. In one of the dreams I recorded immediately after waking, I was shown a woman, elderly, with quiet eyes. She had been buried next to her husband, and everyone said, "She has found peace." But what I saw was different. Her soul stood between two trees in the cemetery. She wasn't crying, she was watching. Hours passed, day turned to night, then day again. She kept standing. She was waiting, and then she whispered, "I'm afraid to go until I know if he forgave me." And again, silence. Here's the strange thing: the soul doesn't always leave right away. Sometimes feelings get in the way, unfinished business. Or the earth. Yes, that's right, the earth can hold it back. How? I tried to understand. And in one of the trances, a thought came to me. A body buried in the ground creates an anchor, a vibrational, energetic one. It's like an old radio station that keeps broadcasting a signal even though no one's listening anymore. The soul is the signal, the body, the receiver. Even after death it continues to emit. And if the soul was too attached to the body, it hears that signal. It cannot leave. Some will say this is made up. What could possibly hold back a soul? Isn't it supposed to be easy and full of light? No, not always. If a person lived in fear, they don't go into the light. They look for a place to hide. If a person lived in attachments, they don't go to spirit. They cling to the house, to the money, to the name etched in stone. Traditional burial, it's beautiful. It's a ritual. It's a symbol. But it doesn't always help the soul let go. Sometimes the opposite, it holds it back. Especially if the funeral was filled with tears, fear, the sense of loss, things that cement the soul's presence. In one case, I saw a man who had been buried, and his whole family cried as if the world had ended, and his soul stayed, not out of grief, but because it thought, they can't handle this without me. Sometimes the soul doesn't know what to do next, because in the ground there is no path. There is peace, there is silence, but there is no direction. I asked one guide in a dream, what if the body isn't buried? What if it's given to fire or water? And he answered, then the soul rises faster, because there is no anchor. But, I add from myself, it all depends not on the method, but on awareness. If the person is ready, nothing will hold them back. But such people are rare, and so burial in the earth is not just about the body, it's about the state of the soul, about its last connection to the material world, and if that connection is not severed, the soul will walk nearby, in the field, in dreams, in the accidental breath of wind. In one of the hypnotic sessions I conducted back in the 1930s, something else spoke through the voice of a woman who was in a trance. Her voice changed. It became deeper, calmer, and it said, the soul buried in the earth does not vanish. It permeates the soil. It spreads among the roots. It listens to the rain as it falls. But it does not know whether it can go further. I asked, why? Because death is not a door. It is a crossroads. And the earth is one of the directions. It holds, it receives, but does not let go immediately. After that dream, I began to see cemeteries differently. There are not just memories there are sounds, vibrations. Alongside the silence lives something that hesitates to leave, something that waits, sometimes for centuries. A soul buried in the earth can return, through dreams, through a voice in your head, through unease, especially if it was not guided onward, if no one told it, go. We'll manage. Many cultures had farewell rituals, but not just as a tribute to tradition, as an act of release. A soul needs to be let go or else it will remain nearby. I saw this in my visions. A man buried according to Christian rites could not leave because he didn't believe he was forgiven. A woman who died during the war stayed near her home because no one knew where she was buried, and no one called her by name. Sometimes I ask, what is a named gravestone? It's not just marble, it's an address. And if the soul has not yet broken away, it will keep returning to that address, for years, for decades. Some souls buried in the ground seem to fall into a kind of slumber. They are not in motion, not in the light, they are in waiting, and only a specific call, a prayer, or another push can awaken them. That kind of soul sleep isn't always something bad, but it takes away movement. The soul doesn't grow, doesn't remember that there are other levels. Once I asked, and what if we don't cry at the funeral but rejoice? What if instead of black we wear white? And the answer was, then the soul will see the light, then it will not get confused. You see, it's not about the burial itself. It's about the state of the heart. But the earth balm is a powerful symbol. It promises peace, but sometimes too early, because the soul is not yet ready to rest. I want you to reflect, is death an end, or is it a transition? And if it's a transition, shouldn't we treat it like a journey, not like a conclusion? Because then even the funeral is not a period. It is a starting point. Once I worked with a man who had experienced clinical death. He said that at the moment his heart stopped, he saw himself from above. Doctors were bustling around, an alarm was sounding, lights were flashing, and then silence. He felt something gently pulling him upward, but suddenly it was as if a force resisted, like a rope tied to his heels. He couldn't rise any further. When I asked what that force was, he replied, "My coffin, I saw it. It was already waiting for me, and I couldn't go because I was too tied to the earth." It was a powerful image, because we often don't realize how our own beliefs about death keep us within the boundaries of the body. We think we must lie in the ground, and the soul, it listens and hesitates. Does it even have the right to ascend? In my visions, I saw that burial in the earth is like a ripe fruit falling from a tree, natural, quiet, but not always timely. Sometimes the soul is not yet ready for peace, and the earth becomes not a refuge, but a prison. The ancient Egyptians believed that the body had to be preserved, because it was the vessel on which the soul traveled to another world. But if the vessel was damaged, the journey was delayed. So when you see a gravestone, don't perceive it as an end. It's a beacon, a signal that the soul is still nearby, and very often waiting to be released. In one session, a vision came to me, an old wooden coffin deep in the earth, and above it a beam of light. But the light didn't reach it, as if the soul wanted to break free, but something held it, an untold story, unfinished business, an unspoken farewell. It's not a punishment, it's a consequence. Too often we think that burying the body is enough, and everything is done. But for the soul, the ending does not come. If it's not invited upward, it stays below. If no one said, "Thank you for everything," it believes it's still expected. I speak of things that are hard to measure. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to think. Maybe every burial is a mirror of ourselves. If we fear death, we bury it deep. If we accept it, we give it wings. And then the funeral is no longer an act of farewell, but a blessing for the journey. Sometimes at night, when the silence becomes almost tangible, I can feel the souls drawing near, not to frighten, but to remind they are still here, especially those who were buried in the ground but were never released in thought. I have witnessed many such stories. Once a woman came to me who had felt a presence in her home for years, a soft rustle, a breath, a faint light in the corner of the room. Her father had been buried beside the house, as was family tradition, but something held him there. Not anger, not fear, but worry. Would she manage without him? Had she forgiven? She cried during the session, not from fear, but from realization. His soul still could not depart. And only when she whispered, "Go, I'm grateful, but I will be okay," the house filled with light, gentle, warm, a farewell. It wasn't a phantom, it was attachment. Traditional burial is an act of respect, a way to preserve the body. But if it becomes the center of attention, if we cling to the grave as proof of our love, we may, without knowing it, keep the soul tethered. The soul is not the body. It doesn't need earth, it needs direction. And this is the paradox. People want to honor, but sometimes they create a trap, because every "you're always with us" can be a call to stay, and every "rest in peace" just a wish, unless the soul is accompanied by light. In my visions I saw some souls rise effortlessly, as if lifted by the wind, and others as if they were sinking, not because of sin, but because of invisible threads still tying them to the earth. Unfinished business, promises left unfulfilled, tears that never dried. A funeral is not just a ritual, it is a moment of transition. If it passes in silence, dryly, formally, the soul wanders, unsure if it is expected elsewhere. But if the funeral is like a prayer, a gesture of gratitude, a blessing, then the doors open. That has always been the strength of traditions. Not the grave itself, but the words, the silence, the recognition. You were, you are, and you move on. We shouldn't fear the earth. It is part of the circle. But we must remember, the soul is not a seed meant to grow deep below. It is light, and it needs not roots, but sky. And when you stand beside a grave, don't ask why you feel sorrow. Ask yourself, did I let go? Did I let her know she may leave? After all the years of research, observation, reading others' memories, and reflecting on my own experience, I realized the body is just a vessel, and burial is not the end, but a farewell scene. How we perform it will influence how quickly the soul moves on. Sometimes a person was kind, fair, and compassionate, but after death, their soul cannot leave the world for a long time. I used to think it was due to karma, but then I saw sometimes it's because of those who remain. We hold on, with our pain, our fear, our inability to say thank you and goodbye. We build monuments, buy marble, install benches, but what is really needed is silence, and light, and words. Go, I don't hold you. The earth accepts the body, but not the soul. The soul listens not to the ground, but to the hearts of those who part. And if the heart is closed, the soul lingers. It walks nearby, it waits for permission. I saw this in dreams, in visions, in letters from people who came to me with strange stories. Their father appeared in dreams, stood on the threshold, silently looking from a corner. And every time we sat down to talk, it turned out there were words left unsaid. Once they were spoken, he disappeared. Not forever, but moved on to where one no longer needs to be near, to still be together. Traditional burial is not evil, but it must be about understanding, not about fear, not about doing everything the right way, but about giving the soul direction. Edgar Cayce, in his trance states, often spoke of the earth's energy. It receives, it preserves, but only what belongs to it. And if we bury the body but try to hold on to the soul with memories, grief, dependency, we violate the law of transition. Because death is not the end, it is a passage, and when you stand at a fresh grave you hold power, not magical but human, to say something that brings ease, for the one leaving and for yourself. Say, I haven't forgotten, but I release you. Say, go in peace, I'm still here, but with faith that we'll meet again. Say, your life remains in me, but you are free. And then the earth will not become a prison, but soil through which the light can pass onward, because the soul does not lie down. It flies. And there is only one thing that can help it: love, that does not cling.